The xiphoid process is this little tiny tab at the bottom, which actually, when you look at this thing here, it's all messed up. It usually sticks and tilts in much more. So the big pieces here, it's 3 bones, 1, 2, 3. They fuse early on when we are teenagers. As we said, the baby also, the skull is never. It's like 3 or 4 bones up here, and they're all loose to begin with. Some aren't even completely formed at all. In a lot of cases. And so the ribs are a shape, usually 2 big bumps, and another one after that. Try for symmetry whenever possible. And first rib is there, and the first one here, and the sternum runs to the middle. Okay, and then our 5th one sits about here. This is the 10th one. 5th one sits about here. Okay, and that's the first one. That's the 5th one. The 3rd one has to be here. We can do the math a little later on. We won't, my bad little stick, I'm not going to do a very good drawing of the ribs. My hint for 101 for drawing bones, ribs especially when you do that 3rd project, is sometimes artistically I'm better at seeing, I just said a few minutes ago, don't draw the outlines of the shapes. But sometimes, and I do this a lot when I'm drawing Bobby or whomever, I'm very good at seeing the distances between things, more so than the exact shape of the elements themselves. Sometimes I find myself, when I run into difficult problems like ribs, I like to draw the holes. Okay? For some reason, I draw the holes and the ribs then appear, because I'm drawing this gap and then this gap. Because to draw this thing is hard to do because they get thick and thin and that kind of stuff. And not all kinds of strange things happen as we draw and we erase. And, well, I'll talk about that too. Is don't erase much if you can avoid it. But more to talk about yet. Let's get another 2 boxes here, real quick. A little bit more. We can bring this line down, and bring that line down, and about to there. That looks like I've doubled it. And remember, this is the for instance. This is the maybe kind of thing in terms of proportion. The ideal, as I said, you start looking at Bobby, you start looking at William, you look at all kinds of other people, and you start figuring out, well, this person has shorter arms. I knew a guy I roomed with for a while back. He was a heavyweight wrestler at Boston College, and his head was just bigger than other people's. He was a big guy, 6'4", but he was big. I kept looking at there's something weird about this guy. Like he was, barroom fight, I wanted to be behind Paul all the time. The pelvis would come down here. So the pelvis itself, a real quick pelvis is a shape something like this. And right there. And I just gave myself a little roadmap of points to consider. What I have is the uppermost point of the part of the iliac crest. Notice that the rookie, this distance right here, I can kind of just slip my hand through it. And remember, this thing's mechanical, so it's not right. It's bolted together. When we draw the skeleton, the mistake the rookie makes, and I do on occasion too, is I add like 17 more vertebrae in here. There's 32 of them. But visually, I make people 7'9", and add a little more distance in there, and you get this distance, this gap here, going to the point where you could like fly a 747 through it or something. And in essence, you can usually just fit your hand at this point through that spot. Now, once again, keep in mind that varies and changes. You tilt your body over this way. Bobby, hold that 1 second. Tilt the body over this way, and what happens to that gap? It gets smaller. What happens to this one? It's bigger. Okay, and that happens in you too. In this case, I can actually make those bones touch, but it doesn't work that way with us. There is something in the way. It's going to stop that from happening. But it's going to flex, and it's going to abduct, articulate. It's going to move something. And so Important to keep that in mind. And as I said, the rookie mistake is making this gap too big or too small on many occasions. And this 5IQ helps. Thank you, sir. So this is the top of the pelvic crest. It's going to come down. The spine is actually going to run from the base of the skull. What's the first vertebrae?
Atlas.
Atlas, good for you. Is up here. And the spine's going to run right on through. And it's going to get wider at the bottom. It's going to come to about here. And as you know, as I said, I wouldn't even begin to count the vertebrae. I mean, you'll have to deal with it with the pictures that you're going to look at. You're going to problem is the rib cage are going to get in the way of some of them, and then some you're going to see prominently. But you notice how thick and solid this is down here, and this is a one solid piece of equipment, the pelvis. And so the pelvis is shaped kind of like this. This little point of departure, really important, is the pubic bone. Right here, with a little bit of cartilage between it, because this is a bone and this is a bone, and it's connected by the sacrum in the back. Back to my drawing both sides at one time, the sacrum in the back, 5 little vertebrae fused together with 3 little ones at the bottom, which is what's left of our tail. And some of us actually, when we're born, still have the tail. If you do, they normally nick it off in the little room right then and there. You know, but I think it'd be kind of cute to see folks at the beach going, ooh, I love it.
Swat flies.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, you've studied biology class, you know, when you're in that immediate stage in the very beginning, the tail is very prominent, you know, but it goes away relatively quickly within a week or two of conception. But that pubic point right there, and that's very important. This is a point here that's very important. Of course, the skull itself here is very important, but this is that straight down look of it. The ischium, which is going to be about here, I mentioned that last week. We are sitting on the ischium, these 2 bumps, and there's a line about like that. That's going to come here. So our rough pelvis. The inlet, the big hole in the back, covered by that sacrum, which is back here. Basic proportions. Still one of the 5IQ. Once again, you can start to see the distances and how they make sense. If we put a few muscles on the front of this, and where this comes in handy, and in a little bit I'm going to draw Bobby, and I'm going to show you where this is going to come in handy. Of course, the clavicle is going to be here, collarbone. It's hooked. It's only, I mentioned, the only place it articulates from is right here. Our arms are connected to us at this point only, with some ligaments and things like that. The rest of this is floating freely, held together by some specific muscles that keep it in place. Clavicle will come out to about here. Starts as a round tube here and ends up as a flat form out there. And the scapula is in the back. Once again, I'm drawing the front end, thinking about the back at the same time. The scapula is in the back. And the scapula, well, it would actually, if I draw one on this side here, here's that 5IQ, there's the center line, and here's this same point right there. Scapula is a shape like this. This cup right here, this inner shape is the glenoid cavity I mentioned, which is the socket for the bone, the humerus. And the bottom of it comes down to about here. And there's a wing, actually the scaphoid wing is here. And this is the only part that has thickness. If we saw it from the side, you'd see how this has some depth to it this way. You know, but how thin of a, you know, again, this is about the thickness of a dime, the bone itself. And it's just there so we have to have enough surface back here for some of the muscles and tendons that we need